But trending as it is Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson spending his time off as a rapper and goes by the name of GVO. Released a song called Villain. Richardson said a verse said, I be throwing down like Drew Brees. I be throwing like Drew Brees. That was the exact quote as mentioned in the Twitter post. And now, this could be a target, right? Of course, on Twitter, you can't believe everything you see, but this is something that does alarm Colts fans and, in general, any fans of Anthony Richardson when it comes to him being available. And this could alarm, of course, not going to really alarm the organization because they do not care what these players do outside of football, but it is something along the lines of, does Anthony Richardson, is he putting in the effort and is he working harder enough to really get the position, right? We see Daniel Jones at OTAs, and again, we get it. Anthony Richardson had the injury, had the re-aggravation of the shoulder injury that he suffered about a year and a half ago. But again, when you're doing things like this, isn't an excuse, Aaron. What do you think?
No, when I first saw it, because it came into my Texans group chat on Discord that I'm a part of, Sauce Sports. So shout out to Sauce Sports. Are the reason why would always love to do YouTube. From the past heading into now. So I always got to shout them out. But whenever I saw that, I was kind of in disbelief because in a way I was always lenient on Anthony Richardson. Aside from Colts fans, because I knew a lot of Colts fans like JDW. They're kind of giving up hope on him. They kind of just not really believing in him too much anymore. And I was leaning on him, soft on him, until I saw the post on Twitter that was made about his rap career. And and me, in a way, I don't mind it, but when it's right as the season's nearby, right as he's got so much on his shoulders of, is he going to be the starter or is he going to be the backup to Daniel Jones? It's one of those things where it's like, is he focused on himself or more of what he thinks can be a backup type career? Like, for example, like I was saying before the podcast, somebody like Darren Waller, he lost passion in the game because of just, I'd say, like, the organizations he was with. There wasn't really much to be proud of, just so much going on in his head, I'm sure. And when he retired, he just went after his rap career that he already had going. So it's kind of one of those, like, is Anthony Richardson kind of like losing passion a bit, but I'm not going to overreact a bit. I know people will overreact a bit, but it's still one of those things where it's like you're fighting for a position that, like, you don't even have in your palms yet. A lot of people believe that you do, but it's still one of those things where it's, you don't see it. It would, like, be better if you just stay out of social media wise, just so people know that, oh, okay, he's behind the scenes working on his craft.
No, yeah, exactly. And, it just really just a train of thought here is more though just Anthony Richardson needs to really get it together, right? In terms of, because this is a quarterback battle, this is a duel.
Yeah.
The job is not guaranteed for Anthony Richardson at this time. And Daniel Jones, meanwhile, Daniel Jones over here at OTA's minicamp, looking really good, trying his hardest, looking like he's putting an effort to make chemistry with the receivers, really just putting in, day out, looking like a really good, hard-working quarterback that wants to be a starter on this team. And Anthony Richardson, when you look at posts like that, it really just already lights another fire right up Anthony Richardson. And that, to put it like that, I could have put it better in terms of, like, just putting more heat to Anthony Richardson and more of the media starting to pay more attention to him as well, as if he is working hard or trying to get the starting position. So again, things to be concerned about that. But now we're going to go to the first player on the Houston side. Who do you think, Aaron, is a player that, has heat still with them to be a really good caliber player?
So the one player that everybody just puts so much amount of, not hate, but more of, we would love to see you do better, but we know this might be it for you, is our wide receiver who we drafted back in 2022, I believe. I believe it was 22, and that is a wide receiver from Alabama, John Mechie. Unfortunately, he dealt with cancer his rookie year, and leukemia. I mean, and he went through that struggle, going through it, not being able to go into training camp, not being able to play. So we gave him the benefit of the doubt. He's because we saw his talent in Alabama. He was a great receiver. Alongside everybody he played with. And we believe that John Mechie was going to be that guy once he came back. Some, like, sort of like Tank Dell, being that fast receiver, that talented receiver, that athletic receiver. And his first rookie year, which was his second year, came up. He struggled a bit. Showed to where he could grow more. But as the next year came by, it was one of those where it's like, what are we really getting from John Mechie? And a lot of struggles happened, a lot of fumbles happened from him, especially in our playoff game against the Chargers. The first play where we had the ball, C.J. Stroud threw him a dart in the middle, down the middle. As soon as he caught it, he fumbled it the first play. And everybody, even in my Texans Discord that I was listening to, they were already on his neck. And it was one of those things where it's like you feel bad for him, but he's been in the league for about 3 years already. This is gonna be his fourth upcoming year, and it's one of those things where it's like he needs to show up and show out because we've drafted Jaden Higgins, we've drafted Jalen Noel, two great receivers coming out of Iowa State. We've got Braxton Berrios, we've got Justin Watson, we've got tons of names in our wide receiver group that honestly could overshadow John Mechie, and it's one of those things where it's like it would suck to see him cut after training camp is finished with a 53-man roster, but at this point, training camp is all John Mechie has left because right now it's looking like his way out. But it's one of those things as well. Like Anthony Richardson, he's gonna have to really fight to make people proud, make people like see that he deserves to be on the team, or he deserves to be, say, like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4.
No, exactly. I couldn't agree more with those statements. And as you see his stats, right? 24 receptions, 254 yards, one touchdown, 10.6 average versus 2024 stats. And when you look at something like that, right, that's something that shouldn't really be. I mean, that's not exciting, when you look at a receiver stats, 24 for 254, just all the stats that you get right there, and didn't really have the most impressive stats, and definitely want to look for some more development in him. But like you were saying, the fumbles, the mistakes he's been making, they've been costly to Houston, and it's just not something that the locker room could take, or even the team could take much longer after a while, after his rookie contract is up. So John Mechie, one of those players being, and some great reasoning there behind John Mechie the third. We'll see what ends up happening with him after this season. Maybe he shows up this season. We'll see again. Could be his last chance. But moving back to the Colts here, have a second player that is also on the hot seat, as you can say, or is under the heat, and that is going to be linebacker Zaire Franklin. That is the captain for the Colts, the main linebacker for the Colts right now. And this one is kind of complicated, but kind of easy to explain at the same time. And I think you already know the reason behind it is mainly because of the podcast. We all know about the podcast that Zaire Franklin did with EJ Speed in the trenches. Really amazing podcast. Brought on players, brought on Kenny Moore at one point, and brought Jonathan Taylor as well. It's a really great podcast, The Trenches. And, unfortunately, we've also seen, Zaire Franklin go in beefs, right, with people like Pat McAfee, right? So, that whole situation where the podcast could have gotten more important than the field, right? We started seeing missed tackles from Zaire that we're used to not seeing. We're used to seeing really good gameplay from him, but this past season, the way it started out was pretty slow. Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed weren't there yet. They felt like they were kind of starting to get back to how they were the previous year. And then it took them a while, but then midway through the season and late in the season, okay, we started to see the Zaire we've been wanting to see.
Yeah.
Right? But then there comes the question now going into this year, is he on the hot seat? Is he under the heat? And I will say it could be yes, because there were a lot of Colts fans that were not satisfied with the level of play that he was playing in it. And again, we don't know how the locker room is, that environment, right? Because of all that happened with the podcast and all the beef that was going on and the controversy, right? It's more though a lot of pressure under Zaire, and now Zaire going into this year, he's still a leader in that locker room. He's still an amazing player, and the Colts would love to keep him. But this is a year where he has to continue to prove it that he's still that guy, right? Yeah. Still that leader in that room, still that linebacker. And, I'm a Colts fan, and I'm going to be cheering for Zaire to, prove the haters wrong, prove the Colts fans that think that, he's done, or get him off the team. He's a locker room issue, right? Get all those complaints out the way, and let's see Zaire for who he really is.
Yeah. Yeah, and when it comes to Zaire Franklin and just the whole podcast that was going on, before this past season, with the whole C.J. Stroud and rivalry that they were having against each other, like from podcasts, talking smack about one another, and it's just one of the things where it's like it's better to just show it on the field rather than do it over, YouTube videos in general, just working out harder, making sure you have that mentality that you're gonna show up with what you said. But whenever Texans and Colts played each other, somebody like Zaire Franklin, he was talking the most smack and was getting bodied and pancaked. So it was one of those things where it's like I feel when it comes to the games, the rivalry games, like whenever they're having a rivalry, like him and CJ Stroud, there's like somebody, especially somebody on defense, they're just too much on their head of I want to make him fail instead of the rest of his team failing for them to lose. He's just more focused on that one player, which just doesn't work out because then he'll lose focus. He'll lose focus on who he's targeting, who he's going after, whether it be in coverage, run or pass. So it's one of those things where it's like the mentality of players nowadays needs to, in a way, stop with the whole let me just take everything to social media and try to like hype up this game that's coming up and then just go quiet, like to where it's like, how many tackles did he have? Oh, none. But he just kept getting pancaked. It's one of those things where it's like, you got to recover in the later part of the season so that people can overlook what had happened with the talking smack, with the not proving your point of what you were going to do to that specific player, that specific team. So yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, especially Colts fans that they want to see him do more, stay out of that limelight of talking smack. You can still do the podcast, but it's one of those things where it's like just focus on having fun, not bringing your ego into all of this to make you lose your values of what you're doing on the field.
Exactly. And, to that point, Zaire, just a player that, again, just want to show up more, a lot of heat going into this year. But now we're moving back to Houston, a second player that, you believe, Aaron, is under the heat right now.
Honestly, another player that'd be under the heat right now is on offense as well because our defense, they're pretty good for right now. Yeah, we might have somebody that made a little bit of news named Jimmy Ward, but he's honestly, I never cared for him too much. but another player on offense as well is going to be, honestly, at this point, he's going to be our fourth position running back, and that's our standout, who was a rookie, which is Dameon Pierce, because Dameon, he had a great rookie year. Like, he just showed up and showed out, and we were happy, come out of Florida. He honestly reminded everybody of, like, a junior Marshawn Lynch, just because of the way he just was so tough, the way he just ran through blocks, ran through tackles. And as the years went by, it kind of like everybody was kind of looking at each other like, okay, where'd he go? Like once we got Devin Singletary, Dameon was behind him. He was showing his passion for the game, but there was struggles. And then once we turned Dameon into a kick returner, we're like, what's happened? Like, did something happen for him to get switched from running back, like especially starter potential running back to a kick returner, which is always kind of a bad sign in a way. But I understand why return it, great possessive catcher and all that. But coming from a great rookie year that everybody he got just those awards for being like a beast of a rusher and all that, and just from that first year, what Texas fans believe is that Dameon Pierce was just a great player on a terrible team, which is true. Someone like him and Jalen Petrie on defense, great players on a terrible team, so they showed up and showed out who they were on that one season. And as the years went by, Jalen Petrie, he's still a great defensive player that we all love, and he got an extension for a great reason. But Dameon Pierce, he just hasn't shown his mark. He just hasn't shown who he's been since his rookie year, and we've always waited. He's honestly somebody like John Mechie as well. We've been waiting, and we're just watching. There's still fans of his that are hoping for him to do better, right? Especially after the news of us signing Nick Chubb, us drafting the running back from USC, Woody Marks. We honestly believe that training camp might be it for Dameon Pierce, whether getting cut or traded, but we'll see as training camp passes by and finishes. But yeah, Dameon Pierce is honestly the second guy that I would say.
No, yeah, definitely. And Dameon Pierce, again, going over these statistics, right? 2022, the year you're talking about. I remember when Dameon Pierce first came out, he was a beast. I mean, he started out really good. He got 220 carries, 939 yards, 4.3 a carry for a career, 4 touchdowns, 75 long, 4 fumbles. obviously he had the fumble issues rookie year, but that ended up going away. And then in 2023, right, he didn't fumble any times. He had 145 carries, 416 yards, 2.9 average a carry, 2 touchdowns, 22 long, and that's what you're saying, kind of that regression, right?
Yeah.